Hello, hi. So today what we are going to try to do within the software package Primavera P6 version 15 will be to create a dummy e-governance project. Literally, it's a project to basically implement IT services that interconnect government departments. um, we've got scope documents. We'll take you through the P6 software. By the end of this recording, you'd be able to basically understand the fundamentals of P6, how to use the software, how to apply all of the external information from the tender docs or the documents pertaining to the project, the business case, the scope documents, all the project charter details, WBS dictionaries, etc. But all of that would literally come, as we work through the program development stages. Okay, so we will start by literally having a look at this document, which literally runs through the project that we are trying to build. So over here it gives you a common service centers. Basically it runs through, it says the government has approved the common services center scheme for providing support for establishing 100,000 common service centers and 60,000 villages in India. So this is just a dummy project that we're going to run through within the software. Okay, and we'll take you through the different processes in program development, from the define activities, and link that through with the functions on how you intend on doing it within the software package. Okay, so what we will do is we'll create a brand new project, and you look through P6. In previous videos I taught you through what all of these functionalities were. So up top you've got the file, edit, view, projects, enterprises, tools, admin, and help. All of these at the top ribbons, you can literally just click through and see what all these functions are. Just like Microsoft or Windows applications, they literally look the same, just where you come to access specific commands. Edit, you come here to do the editing of all the windows, etc., all the functions, cut, copy, paste, spell check. But yeah, I've discussed this in previous videos. Just going to give you a quick run through, and then we push through to the development of the project. Here is where you change the layout. Here you do go through what you want to show, top or bottom. Literally in this window here you've got the activity attributes window layout of the spreadsheet. So what this does is it gives you all of the attributes associated with the selected activity in blue. Okay, so say for instance we take this example, concept feasibility. Here, this WBS, we've got the define overall objectives. All right, and this shows you all of the attributes of that particular activity that you can configure. Okay, so it's got the general tab, which shows you the activity type, duration type, complete type, the activity calendar, which you can set literally on the right hand side of any of these options. You literally just click it and it gives you a pop-up window, which you can literally select any configured calendars that you want to associate the activity to. So it's fine detail. It runs you through all of that. You can click whereabouts exactly you want the activity to be situated within the existing WBSs that have been created. As you can see there, you've got all of these WBSs which run through the phases. So you've got the main project WBS up here. You've got the subsequent WBSs, the business case, which obviously represents the inception phase of the project. And here you've got the concept feasibility, the governance surveys as a sub WBS just under that. So basically there is further processes or activities that need to take place under the concept and feasibility. Then we have stakeholder analysis as a phase as well. Then we have policy development and verification of external governance. So basically, after talking you through that, we'll just close this window here and proceed to trying to create the project outright. So we've talked you through all of these functionalities here. Here you have the status. So this basically gives you, within this window here where it says duration, it gives you the status of this particular activity. As you can see, the original duration here is 5 days. All you want to look at within the columns up here is the corresponding original duration, 5 days. So obviously some of these tabs give you the information that you could get down here anyway. So this just gives you a summary of all of the attributes. So over here, this gives you the status of the actual activity. It hasn't started, it hasn't finished clearly. This is the start date, 7th of May, 14th of May, but majority of this information you can also see on the spreadsheet. Okay, so duration percent complete. If you wanted to see on the spreadsheet, all you've got to do is right click and hover over above these columns. You right click it, you scroll down to columns, you select the columns, and what it does, it shows you the available options to the left and the selected options to the right. The selected options are the options that exist currently within your spreadsheet layout. As you can see, activity ID, activity name, and it runs straight through that sequence. If you wanted to include or add any further columns to this display window here within the spreadsheet location, all you do is select the available options. You can either press the plus button and it gives you the options one by one, but if you're not sure where exactly within these tabs, you can literally just go to available options, scroll down to group and sort, and then list them, and it lists everything out without the groupings. Okay, and then you scroll down and select whatever it is you want. So say for instance we wanted to see what area was, or anticipated start, or added by, whatever available option you want to show within this spreadsheet window. You highlight the actual option, and all you could do is just either click the forward or the backward. Backward to remove it back to the available options, forward to include it within the layout that's currently showing. So I'll include just one of them, added by, and then click on apply, and as soon as we've done that, it's put the added by in there. So I'll take it back off because it's not necessary, we don't need it. So I click apply and then click OK. So this is sufficient enough for us. You want the activity ID, you want the name of the activity, you want the plan start, plan finish. You don't necessarily need plan start, plan finish for now because you've got the start and finish. So we could ideally, you know, to give us small space where it's not clogged up, you go back to the columns and you remove the plan start, plan finish. Okay, so take that out, take that out. It just basically means the plan start date, the forecasted date that we aim to start the project, and the forecasted date that we aim to finish the, so the early start and early finish dates. We click apply and click OK. So we've got a lot of space now to work with. Alright, so here we've got the Gantt chart area to the right, and this literally is just a graphical representation of all of the activities. And what these bars actually represent is, if you look up top here, you've got the dates by month, so April 29th and May the 6th. So this goes obviously through weeks. So that's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The Saturday and Sunday are colored in grey, meaning these are weekend days and we're not working on the weekends based on the calendars that have been associated with the project. Okay, you can select individual calendars for each of the activities if the activities do have specific requirements from a duration or date perspective. Okay, so what happens here is, this is the date that ideally we've set as the 4th of May for the start of the project. Ideally it will go back to the default date when you set up your project, that the project will start on that date. That's the date that will come in as the default date, but you can actually make amendments to that particular date in order to get new dates. I'll show you that in a minute. Alright, so basically what the bar represents is basically just the duration of how long the activity is going to take. That is all the bars actually represent. Okay, a duration based on however long they say it's going to take. So here you can see it's 5 days. So if you look over here, you can see that the date here is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. This literally just represents what, how many days did they say? 5 days. So from the 7th of May to the 14th of May. Now the 7th of May to the 14th of May basically takes you through 1 week and almost into the second week. Okay, so sorry about that, let me just take this pop off the window. Alright, so that basically runs you through that. You look through here as well, as I said, all of the attributes, start, finish, primary, dates, etc. Leave the constraints out of it. You never want to use constraints within your program. You let logic drive it. Predecessor, successors, dependencies and interdependencies only. Okay, so the project obviously will be driven by logic. Okay, so the activity sequence arrow diagram method, forward pass, backward pass, critical path method. Okay, that is basically what's happening in the back end when you've sequenced all of the activities by adding inherent logic within the program. Okay, so you look over here, you could select the start date, end date that you want, obviously when the activity has started, but not now because we're still in the building phase of the program. Okay, and towards the right you can see the labor costs. If there were labor costs associated, in order to show costs within P6, you have to actually create an activity and assign that activity, create a resource and assign that resource to a particular activity, and then you could start viewing the cost information. Because within P6, the lowest subdivision of the project is the activity, and the activities obviously accrue cost as the project progresses. Okay, so within this window here, you can see the labor cost. If there was an activity with resources allocated, it will give you all the cumulative costs accrued. Initially, obviously, we're at the as planned stage, so no progress has occurred. It would literally just be the calculated values of how much it will cost the activity for that particular time. Okay, and you could also select options within this particular bar, which is if you wanted to view the non-labor units, you do likewise. If you wanted to view the labor units, now labor units obviously means there are 3 different types of resources that you can assign to any activity: a labor resource, a non-labor resource. As you can see, labor units, non-labor units, labor cost, non-labor cost, material cost. Okay, so the 3 different types of activities are labor resource, non-labor resource, and material resource. Okay, and all of them would have costs, and the only 2 that would have units, obviously based on the durations attached to them, will be labor units, non-labor units. All right, so that's it with the status bar. Here you can view the window where you can attach resources. Here you see the tab for the predecessor successors, but clearly we haven't included any of the relationship links for the activities yet. But you can view that through here. You can view the successors. Ideally, what I always like to use will be the relationships, because what happens is you don't need to look at predecessor successors. You just come to relationships, and that gives you the relationships of the selected activity highlighted in blue, and through that you can view both predecessor and successors and literally just follow the logic right the way through, as you obviously go either forward or backwards when you're doing your schedule analysis. Okay, so that's basically the fundamentals that are required to understand P6. And what I would do is, within this, I just want to give you guys a simple introduction into the definitions within the help bar. Okay, this is ideally quite important for those who are just starting out their planning careers. What you want to do is go to the help bar, and the help bar is located on the topmost ribbon here. You click on the help bar and it will load this particular help desk information nodes. Okay, and what you want to do is look at structuring projects, working with the EPS, which we've discussed in subsequent videos prior. And what we'll do is look at the developing projects, which is obviously where we're at now, because we're starting to build the program, put the sequence of how the work's going to be done. But in order for us to do that, we'll run through the cycle or the life cycle of the actual project that we aim to implement within the software. Now, without background understanding of the type of life cycle that you want to implement within the project, you will struggle to create a program. So get it first that it's the life cycle that's the most important, so obviously what work breakdown structures or what phases are included within that life cycle. Once that's obviously defined, then you can start to populate the important activities that can be counted as deliverables. The idea is not to include a series of pointless activities within your program. Okay, every one of the activities that you include within your program needs to be measurable, and it needs to be practical, and it also needs to have a particular reasoning behind it, why the activity is being performed. Is it a key deliverable as required of the scope of the project? If it is, then yes, you include it. Okay, but the level of detail that you include within your program varies. It depends on how much information is actually available at the early stages of the project. Okay, so we look at activity types. Activities here, it gives you a description of what the one second, I'll just reload this. Okay, here we are. So it gives you, you know, the definition of what the activities are, and basically runs you through all of the functions that you can literally look at about the activity. So basically you can define the following information for an activity. All the attributes that you can define for the activity are listed right here. So activity ID, activity name. One second, I will pause the video. Okay, sorry for the interruption. So basically this gives you all of the attributes that you can define for the any of the activities that you create. Activity type, activity duration, the percent complete type, which are used to specify which calendar applies to the activity, whether an activity is a milestone. As we discussed in previous programs, if the activity is a milestone, it would either be a start or a finish milestone. If it's a start milestone, it would only have a start date, meaning that by that particular date, either an activity needs to be performed, or it's an important date by which an activity either needs to have been performed, or either an activity needs to start, or a phase needs to start, or a work package needs to start. Okay, and then if it's a finish, that would barely mean that by that particular date an activity needs to be completed. Okay, so milestones usually have no durations. All right, bear that in mind. How to keep an activity's unit values, durations, resources, unit time, values synchronized, etc. So you look at activity codes and values. Basically what the activity codes do is that you can assign specific activity codes, i.e. location, i.e. Disciplines, i.e. color code, i.e. phases, i.e. cycles to activities, so that you can filter specific activities out that are important for, you know, basically reporting requirements. All right, so it makes it easier for you to select. Say for instance you had 100,000 activities and you wanted to select particular activities. You would first of all define the activity codes that are required by the clients or by your senior management for reporting purposes. So basically these will be based on project requirements, all right, or senior management requirements for tracking. Here it describes constraints on the activity schedule, start and finish dates. Now the idea of constraints should be seldomly used. Do not use constraints within your program. Okay, the best planners never ever use constraints within their programs. It's basically a roadblock on a dynamic program. Okay, so your program needs to be able to move back or move forward. Okay, if it has a roadblock saying by a particular date you have to have finished, what you're doing is distorting the critical path. Okay, and then that then means that your program's not dynamic, because you've put a roadblock or you've put a pin on a particular activity clearly stating that it shouldn't move forward or backwards. Now that's not programming. All right, so you look at the expenses. You can define expenses for specific activities, and now we come to the all important part, which is the predecessor and successor relationships. All right, get a good grounded understanding of the arrow diagram method or the critical path method. If you do, then you'd totally understand what happens within the program when you're defining activities and activity relationships. Okay, so note, the only activities without predecessors would always be the first activity within the program, which would usually or should be best practice a start milestone. Okay, and the last activity within the program, which would be a finish milestone, will not have a successor. Okay, which are used to define relationships with other activities. So this is the most important key thing, and the science of planning revolves around this. If you're able to understand outside of the software what the actual project sequence is, how all of the activities knit together, that is literally the sequence. All right, follow the life cycle of the discipline in which the project is being performed, and that would help you out. Okay, work products, documents, and deliverables. You can attach a series of documents, deliverables to the actual program whilst you develop it. All right, so all of those functions you can find down here. This is basically an explanation of all of these functions that you can see here. As I said, these are all the functions that you can define for the activity, all these attributes. Okay, expenses, summary, relationships, risks, discussions per activity. Okay, so you select the activity, you highlight it, and you can click on any of these windows and then go through all the options that you have to define the activity. Each activity might have unique specific requirements that you need to define. You use it based on the project requirements. Okay, so what I would do is proceed to developing the program. We'll close this particular project so we can create within the EPS, which is the enterprise project structure that houses all of the projects or all the initiatives that the actual company is performing. So if you open it, all it is just a group of files that are stored within the database that P6 uses. All right, so you can see how they're neatly aligned. Product development, SSJ001, energy, manufacturing, E&C, which means engineering and construction. These are the codes, and these are the actual project names, or the EPS nodes. And within these EPS nodes, if you open them, you have various projects assigned underneath these particular sub-functions. Okay, so we call these sub-functions. All right, so we could have HR, we could have, finance, etc. You just basically tweak them as required by your company. All right, so we will go for the SSJ001. We highlight it, and this is the location that we want under the SSJ001 that we want to create our new project. All right, so here we have an anti-money laundering project, and we want to create it under this WBS. All right, as we said, it's a government project which deals with the e-governance. Okay, so under anti-money laundering, we'll create it here. So the first thing you do is hover over the EPS node, you right click, you scroll down to the add button, and here you can literally just either add a project via this method here, or you scroll to the right and you add it via the command section to the right here. Okay, so if you do it via the command section to the right, what happens is a wizard window will pop up. So we'll do it that way to make it easier for you. We've pressed the add button, and the EPS pops up. It asks us whereabouts do we want to store the project. We've already highlighted that anti-money laundering project. We'll press next, and it gives us the option to select a new project ID. We'll call it SSJ underscore 002. Okay, and the name of the project is the E-governance project. We could say, for instance, the country could be we'll say Luxembourg. Okay, we click next, and this is the wizard here, and here it's asking for the project plan start date. This is the forecasted start date for the project. So we highlight this little dot square here, and that will bring up the date, the calendar window where we can select when exactly we want the project to start. So let's just say it's going to start in the summer. Always remember to start all of your projects on the first day of the month. We click on the 4th, we select it, and then remember, do not put any constraints. The must finish by, do not put any constraints. Okay, you want logic to drive the program, okay, or the project. All right, so we click on the next button. It asks what responsible manager do we want to assign. Let's just scroll through, and maybe we could assign it to we'll say IT, because it's an IT implementation project. We click on plus, and then it assigns it to IT. We click on next. It asks what type of rate do we want. Specify the default rate type for new assignments. So basically the new assignments they're talking about here are the resources. All right, you click on next. We leave it on standard rate, and we just click on next. Okay, congratulations, new project's been created. Press finish, and that's us. So we scroll back to the window of the EPS, and as you can see, the new project is created. So all you do is hover over the new project. Now if you wanted to bring up this project window, if it wasn't in there when you sign into the software, all you have to do is scroll towards the left ribbons and look for the left ribbon and look for the icon that has a folder file, and that exactly is where you can create a new project. Or you scroll to the folder itself, and once you click it, it will click open this window here, the project window here that you can see. All right, so you hover over this project here, right click it, and you open it. Okay, that's a new project we've just created. All right, and the program development phase will start. So we'll go back to the document that we were reading whilst the software actually loads up, and we view the project documentation that we were looking at prior. All right, common service centers, CSCs. Just read through tender documentation. It gives you a good idea of what the project aims to deliver on, what the objectives of the project are, all of the deliverables, what you need to achieve or need to deliver on, and the standards or quality standards that the employer actually requires from you. All right, so we'll scroll through this document quick, because all we want to do is just scroll through and find out how many phases or what the life cycle of this type of project actually is. So if we keep scrolling, at some point you'll find the process or the life cycle within the tender docs for this particular project, but usually you should have some background understanding of what your life cycle within the discipline that you're actually working in. Okay, so if you don't know it, you always do the most important thing that every planner does: you ask the question. All right, so we're going to make a lot of assumptions here, because we're just the video is generally just to give you a general understanding of what the process for developing a program is. All right, so as you can see here, e-governance project development lifecycle. We're gonna try and create this basically just to give you a process of implementing it within the software. All right, challenges in current environment. No need to read all this. It's just processes, minimal online or self-service to stakeholders, IT-enabled processes with no improvements in the service levels, projects not completed in time. So basically, they're talking about the challenges in the current environment and what this project's objectives actually aims to do, which is probably to improve in a lot of these processes or these issues that have been identified. Okay, so we'll scroll down, and at some point we'll get to where the life cycle is. So here you can see that the life cycle for this sort of project, e-governance project lifecycle, here it is. E-governance strategy development. This is one of the first life cycle, which is labeled 1. The second phase will be the current state assessment. Then the third phase will be the future state definition. The fourth will be the implementation approach and sourcing. The fifth, develop and implement IT system. And the sixth, operate and sustain. All right, so the project management office unit, change management and communications. Obviously, they will involve a little. This sort of projects usually have some element of change management within it, because it's a change from the status quo or business as usual, which obviously they've highlighted a lot of the key issues that the government currently faces, and you're moving from the old business process cycles into a more defined, more robust system that can capture the increasing need for IT service implementation within the governmental departments. Okay, so the solutions, obviously, as you remember, a project is always either performed to either provide solve a problem or create a solution. This is in essence what this one's trying to do. All right, so we will scroll down all the way down, and what we want to do is first of all create all of these life cycles as WBSs. We go back to our Primavera P6. We see e-governance strategy development. We know that's the first WBS. All right, so we scroll back, and the new project that we've created, we open that. I can't remember if I actually did open it, but we'll scroll down really quick. SSJ 001, and there we are. So have we actually created that? Yes, we have. All right, so if we click back to it, we want the implementation of the. All right, so open project. There we have it. So just give it some time to open up. And there it is. It's still loading, I assume. Okay, so what project is actually open within the window? implementation of X7 Pro. Oh, so we've actually opened the. Why does it still have that? 1 second. Ah, that's what it is. So basically, we've got two projects open. All you've got to do is just scroll down. All right. So as you can see there, in order to know that it's both projects opened, all you do is drag this window to the right, so you could get some space through it. You see there, it's got 4 total activities, 4, and this one's 0. So you just highlight the project e-governance project Luxembourg. Okay, that's the one we wanted to open. All right. So right click here, open the project, and we are good to go. All right. So we wait for it to load up. As soon as that's done, we continue the process. Just give it a bit of time to load. So basically, we'll just generally look through the organizational breakdown structure, or should I say the WBSs that we aim to define. So this is literally all of the work package phases or the lifecycle phases that this particular type of project will go through, and these are all the key activities that need to be defined that will be performed through the various phases. So we'll just go ahead and create this in the software. All right, so it's loaded up now, and from this window here, as we said, the activity spreadsheet layout window, you can see that there are no activities. As I've discussed in previous lessons, you follow the sequence or process of creating a project within P6. The EPS first, and then the organizational breakdown structure second, then the project, which we've just done, and then the WBS next. Okay, so you can arrange these windows however you choose. All right, so here is the main window. You hover over, this is the project, and this is the WBS window layout. Okay, so you've got the WBS name, which is obviously the project, and what we do, as we discussed before, you right click over that, you highlight it, and you click add, and what this does is it adds a new WBS. All right, and it adds it obviously indenting to the side. So what you'd have is, when you click on that, it's indented it under the project file. So just look at it as a filing system, and the WBSs are basically just a filing system of where you go to, or you want the activities or the work breakdown structures to be hierarchied. So it's a hierarchical dissemination of work packages. All right, products or sub-products. All right, every WBS produces a product, okay, or the end of a process. All right, and that output is then transferred over into another process or into another phase, and that cycle continues until you reach the end of the life cycle of the project. Okay, it's a temporary endeavor, as you already know. All right, so new WBS, we've created that already. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 phases, so we have to create 6 WBSs. Click on add. Make sure you keep highlighted over the main project bar, because you want to create all of the WBSs under that particular project bar. Okay, so you click add, and we create another 4 more. Click add, click add, click add, and there we have it. So we've got all of them now. As you can tell, they're not sequenced properly, so what you could do is scroll to the right, you use the add commands, or sorry, the up and down commands, to shift these WBSs, to rearrange them. Okay, so you do that, you shift it back up, arrange it. All right, the general understanding is that the comparison between P6 and Astar, a lot of these functions that we're trying to do can actually be done a lot easier within the Astar Power project, but P6 also has its benefits. Okay, so P6 defines everything, and it's quite easy to use actually. All right, so you sequence everything 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as you can see. So basically, you just take this as you creating a dissertation, and you wanted to have your headers. Just assume these are kind of like headers. All right, so the first WBS that we're going to highlight is going to be the E-governance E/governance strategy development. All right. Alright, so the next one would be current state assessment. Current state assessment. Alright, the third phase would be the future state definition. The fourth will be the implementation approach and sourcing. Alright, the fifth would be development and implementation of IT system, and the sixth, operate and sustain. Alright, so that's the last phase, and all we want to do is just move over this window so it extends this location and we can see the full text. Okay, so we can shift this to the right. Alright, so we finished creating all the WBSs for the work processes. Alright, so what we want to do is go over to the activity. So within the projects window, you can only see the projects within the EPS nodes. The WBSs are all the WBSs that we've just created, and within the activities spreadsheet layout, all you can see is all the activities, but we haven't got any activities. All we have is literally just all of the WBSs. Okay, so what we're going to proceed now to do is create activities. The same way, you can right click over the highlighted WBSs that we've created and add activities where the work package, or add activities to within the actual work packages of where they're going to be performed. Okay, alright, so it's just breaking down the actual activities that will be performed, the important activities that are measurable, practical, and are required as per the scope to be delivered. Alright, so the first phase would be the e-governance development, and that's obviously right down here. So what you could do within these columns is to select it so it either sorts them in ascending or descending. Here you've got it as ascending or descending, but sometimes when you create them it may come out distorted, but the moment you add activities in there, it will sort itself out based on the hierarchy of the numbering system. Okay, so either an ascending 0.01, 1.2, 1.3, all the way down. Okay, as you can see, that's exactly how it's labeled it here. It's just basically a mirror shot of the actual WBSs that you created within the WBS window. Alright, so remember, the first activity within any project that you should create should be the start activity. Okay, so within that start activity, I will just create that right now, and as soon as that's done, we'll label it straight away. And all the activities we need to create within the e-governance strategy development will be all of these. Okay, so what I will do is I'll pause the video and I'll come back when all of these activities are created. Okay.